Hello, welcome to the show. To me, my hair looks fuzzy and funny today, but we'll see. Um, Actually, I'm thinning and I'm using some kind of stuff called Happy Head on my head, and it leaves a sticky, crinkly residue, which is extremely annoying. But in my imagination, perhaps, or maybe for real, I think I see little baby hairs growing, so I'm very excited. Men like me can identify. But anyway, um, in the process of selling a house, and it's the house I raised my kids in. Wow. Okay, got great news. Just heard from my realtor, and that we're expecting an offer on the house. Um, Tell you a little secret, a strange secret about this. It's a beautiful home in a beautiful location, wonderful neighborhood, a great place to raise kids, and I raised my kids here. And it was a good experience. The house was overbuilt for us, but it was perfect size. It was very large, and we we lived in it and enjoyed it. But we originally built it for resale. At the time, this was back in 2007, 2008, right around the time of the real estate crash, if that triggers any memories. Um, this was a project that we were working on. We had built a couple of years earlier another house next door. We lived in that for 2 years and then turned around and put it on the market. They had a deal in those days where all your capital gains, you could shelter up to $250,000 in capital gains per person. And if you were a couple, you owned it jointly, then 500,000 in gains. And wow, I'd like to have 500,000 in gains, right? Well, in those days, prices were going up so fast that, big gains were possible. So we were excited about selling um, that house and moving into this one, living in it for a couple years, and then selling that too. We actually, because the market was so hot, and we actually uh, put the new house on the market immediately just to see what would happen. And we didn't get any bites. So we moved in, lived in it for a couple years, then put it back on the market. But by then, the '08 crash had happened and the real estate market was dead, especially in our area and for our size of home and style. It was completely dead. To put all this in perspective, we had built the first house I described in '04, '05, and they lived in it for 2 years. And we bought all the properties in '03, I think. So '07, we've got both of them on the market for a little while. Then we move into the bigger house, which was the second one. The first house is on the market. We finally sold the first house in 2020. And the second house, which we plan to sell uh, in around 2010, was now 2023. And we sounds like we're going to get the first offer we've ever had. That's how bad the market is here. Now, smaller homes go fast. My soon to be ex wife bought a home last year, a year and a half ago, for herself. And the market was on fire for homes of that price range. And she actually offered, I think, $25,000 more than the asking price just to get it. There were like 5 offers in the first day it went on the market. But in our price range, which was much higher for this big home that we built, we have 4 kids, so it was good to have a big home. But in this home that we built, there was just no buyers, none. And we had been in the real estate business for a while. It was a side business that was getting bigger and bigger, and we were looking at maybe making it our full time business, real estate development. By when '08 came, we actually went on a journey in '08, '08, '09, the crash happened, we didn't realize it was going to be permanent. We thought it was just, a traditional recession. You go deep, you may go deep down, but then it bounces right back. So we gave it some time to bounce back. And then during that time, we went out and lived for 2 years in a motorhome and traveled around North America, visited every state and most of Canada with my 4 kids and my now ex, but then wife. And sometimes we would bring along someone else to help with the kids. So it was a wonderful experience. We felt like we were in good shape because we figured during that time the market would bounce down and then it would bounce back up. And by the time we got back from our trip, the market would be back in shape and we could go back into the real estate business. We had another business that had produced some income for us. It was the remnants of a business I had purchased from my dad many years earlier. I actually gave half of it to my ex in exchange for her agreement to run the damn thing because I had never run that portion of the bit. We had it had multiple facets to it, and I got rid of most of them and kept one that was profitable and moved it from another state. And I had another small business that was running its course. So took the employees from that and said, okay, now you work for this, my old, what was left of my dad's old business. And had other people run it for a while. And then I got my wife to run it because she used to work in corporate and we'd been raising 4 babies. And I figured she was probably getting sick of breastfeeding. And I mean, she had just finished all that and the diapers and would probably be, since she spent most of her life in corporate America, she might like getting back into an office. And she does like to be in an office. But anyway, so we had that business on the side, but it only produced so much and we had kind of let it sag a little bit. So we get back from our journey and lo and behold, the market hasn't bounced. The market was dead and it stayed dead for a long time. And we had borrowed money. And the thing was, we suddenly had no income. We had money tied up in these houses. We weren't getting any income from them, of course. They weren't rented. And we tried to rent them and had a difficult time renting them because they were large. We finally did rent the first one for a couple years. And then afterwards, we had to spend so much repairing from the damage that it ate up all the profit we made. So we really had no income except for from this small little business that was not in very good shape, this other business we had. So then we began working on building that up, and it was a business that I had lost interest in and was burned out from because I'd been involved with it since I was a kid with my dad and really had no desire to develop. But out of necessity now, because we had no income, we started rebuilding that business from scratch, really. And it took, we figured it'd take 6 months. It took 5 years. It was amazing how long it took to get that business back up and running. And now I would say today it's stronger than it's ever been. We still have struggles, cash flow. We're growing so fast we don't have any money. So I've been living on nothing. Actually, my dad gave me a little money. I've been living on scraps. Living in a motorhome, the same motorhome we traveled in. I'm living in that. And it's nice. I like it. It's fine for a single guy. But it's I couldn't afford anything else. So, and I don't know how she's surviving, but she actually, my ex is got together and is now living with my ex brother-in-law. Here comes the Jerry Springer portion. Who used to be married to my now dead sister. Yeah. Who's actually a great friend of mine, one of my best friends. And so she's together with him. They're living together in her new house, and he's got some money. He had a business. He sold his family home. His wife had passed away, his second wife. So I think he's helping her, which helps me, really, because my kids, 3 of my kids are still there. All of my kids are adults. My youngest is almost 19. They're all in college. My youngest is getting ready to start college. The other 2 are in college and on career paths. And my oldest is already involved in a career. Didn't do college. Instead, she's an EMT and working on becoming a paramedic. And that's what she enjoys doing. So they're all on their paths, So now I'm here, still poor, with a business that's booming, but I was just got off the text with a guy, an accountant. I have to figure out why I'm still poor, even though I want to have a solid handle on why I'm still poor, even though we had to borrow money from the bank last year to pay taxes, a lot of it, and then we had to make more money to pay the bank back for that. And I'm wondering, well, where's all the money we made that we had to pay tax from? And I think it's all tied up in receivables, because as fast as we collect money, we get more contracts, which is actually a wonderful problem to have, because it means someday you're going to have a lot of money. And so that's what I'm hoping for. But I need a good accountant to explain that to me, because I just don't have a good picture right now. And that's an easy position to be in. The other option, of course, is that my ex is stealing me blind, but I don't believe that. And because I'm a good guy, and I believe I don't hang out with people like that. Although I have had employees steal. I have. I tend to be trusting, and that will burn you. But one of the reasons I hired my wife for that job is because I trusted her. And I had been burned too many times by too many people. So let's hope that's not what it is. I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's just cash flow. And that'll be a great problem. And now, today, we have a contract coming in the morning. Holy fucking shit. This is wonderful. We just got new realtors. This one, my brother-in-law recommended, and then my ex wanted them because she just wanted to change. And I was very skeptical about this particular realtor. They came from a different town. They didn't have any roots here. I figured they're just going to, the stuff that they were selling over there is all like, development houses. They're all the same and on half an acre and it's a generic market and you're selling to the same buyers. And over here, they're all everything's custom, all custom homes. There's no development homes where I am here. It's all high end. We're waterfront on the Chesapeake Bay. So it's very high dollar. But an off the beaten path kind of market as far as our physical location. And I thought we had to stick with the locals or people who had a lot of local experience. And so we went with these people, and they're bringing in people like crazy. So my brother-in-law and my ex were right, and I was wrong. See, don't ever say I'm not willing to admit when I'm wrong, because this is a joyous time to be wrong. So I'm excited about that. Of course, if the house does sell, we're not going to get much cash because the house lost half of its value from our original asking price when we first built it, and the realtors put it on the market at what they suggested, to what we're looking to sell it for now is almost exactly 50% of the original asking price. That's how bad the market sunk. Not only did we get no orders, no business, but all of our equity was vaporized by the crash and just by the lack of demand. So we have demand, but they're just not willing to look at it in those price ranges. So what we're looking to do is pay off the debt, because not only did we borrow money to build the things, but we kept borrowing money during those 5 years I talked about. During the 2 years we were traveling, we were borrowing money against our line of credit against the house, because we figured, well, business is going to come right back, so why not? We're just spending our equity early rather than waiting to sell it. Well, it just kept going like that. And of course, we still had kids. They were in school. We sent them to nice private school. My ex got involved, ended up being the director for a while of the private school on the side as a volunteer. And, we put a lot of time into the kids, and we were living off debt. And so now we have we used up our line of credit, and we haven't been able to draw on that for years because we've maxed it out. And when we sell the house, almost all the money will go to pay that off. But it will also mean we'll have no monthly payments, which will be essentially debt-free. We'll have one small loan that was COVID loan, which are super good rates. It's kind of like the equivalent of a student loan. So you don't want to get rid of those because they're so cheap and they have great terms for a business. But anyway, that's my situation, That's where I am. So, but another angle of that is that this RV is hooked up to the house that's for sale, as far as hooked up to their power, water, septic, and sewer. Septic and water. Power, water, septic, and gas. That's the fourth one, and propane. So I have all my services here like you would at a formal campground without paying rent. So we sell this place. It means, as a practical matter, that I have to go find someplace to live. And I don't even know where I want to live. Another reason why I'm staying in this motorhome. Physically, location wise, I mean, I've been in this location for a long time. Before this, we were next door, and before that, we were just a few miles down the road. So I've lived in this area since 1992. Before that, I lived in a more urban area farther north near DC. And but my first home that I owned was here. And I don't know if I want to stay here now. I mean, I finished raising my kids. It was a great place. It's rural. A lot of people who are related or nearby. My family's been from here for 300 years, so it's a lot of roots. This is what you know. This is Chesapeake Bay region is old, um, and that's cool, and I like that. So from that standpoint, I'm perfectly happy. But on the other hand, as a man, a middle-aged man, and I'm 58. I'll be 59 this June, um, and I'm single. You know, there's not a lot of dating prospects around here, um, especially if you're not one of the hunting and fishing guys, you know, because it is rural. And I love playing with guns and going to the range with my son. And I'd go with my daughters if they wanted to go, but they don't. Um, so I enjoy that. But otherwise, I just was never into hunting and fishing and stuff. I mean, fishing, yeah, I could do fishing, but I just haven't done it in years. I used to go all the time with my dad. So it's just not my passion. Nothing wrong with it. And that's sort of the passion, the default passion around here. I don't drink beer, and pretty much everybody in these in the rural America on Friday night has got a big, you know, Bud Light 20 pack or whatever the hell those cans are. Those big cases of cans they have that they take home with them and empty from over the weekend. Uh, that's not my life. I rarely drink. It doesn't really do anything for me. So I don't have a lot of hobbies to speak of, really. I target shooting on occasion, but that's really about it. So here I am, a guy who just worked, who raised kids. My kids, I especially in the latter few years, I spent a lot of time with my kids because, I mean, while they were growing up, I didn't. I mean, my dad, I never saw him. Okay, he worked. He got up before I woke up, and he came home after I went to bed, and that was his life. And he liked his life. And now that he's retired, I have spent more time with my dad than I ever spent during the entire time of my youth. So it's a different experience. But I didn't want my kids to be like that. I wanted my kids to know me. I wanted to influence them. I wanted to teach them. We homeschooled them for periods of time, and in non-traditional ways. We did something called unschooling for a while. And we had tutors for most of the time, who were actually school teachers who we hired to come in. So one in particular who was very good and very multi-talented, not just a good teacher and qualified. She's a private school teacher now, and she's been in public schools, but she's actually a talented musician, and so she also taught my kids music and instruments, and so we had different things that they were introduced to. They even learned how to cook and stuff like that. So it was neat. I think they had a good educational experience. The one thing they didn't get a lot of was, as they say, socialization, which is always the big criticism of homeschooling. And it was true. Between our trips out and them being home a lot, they didn't get a lot of socialization, which is the best thing and sometimes the worst thing about traditional schools is the opportunity to play and to make friends and stuff like that. It's also the opportunity to get bullied but it is the way that kids learn how to interact with other human beings, and it's important. Um, my oldest actually decided to finish their 12th year, 12th grade, in the local public school, the same school my dad graduated from in 1950. My oldest graduated from in, oh Lord, how many years now? 25, 7 years ago. So that's 2016. So it's the same school and had the same name as my dad. So it was kind of cool. Later on, he became a she when she announced that she really would rather live as a woman, which was a total shock, and that's another story for another day. But anyway, uh, I was talking about my dad. I mean, I wanted to be a dad who was involved and active with my kids, and so I spent a lot of time doing that. And now here I am. My kids don't need me like that. I talk to them. We talk. I'm working with my two middle kids on career options, especially my son, who is on the autism spectrum, and I think the statistics are like 70-80% of autistic adults at 25 years old are unemployed. And my son is 20. He'll be 21 in May, and is still in college, but uh, is a perfect. I'm trying to get him into intelligence community in DC, and I have and entrees access, and I think he's got a really good shot. I really do. So I'm excited about that because another thing as us as dads is we worry about our kids being able to take care of themselves. I mean, if we want to be free, part of what we need is to have the comfort that those people we have been taking care of can now take care of themselves. And that means that our kids are independent, right? Um, and we don't always succeed at that. And when you have four, there's always the odds that a few are going to, or more, are going to flop. But so far, I think they're all going to be okay. Um, so, anyway, that's another part of my personal plan because what I'm doing now is I'm working on my own new independence. I'm leaving my old life, which was a life of being a dad, a husband, um, even a business owner in the real estate development business and the other business, which frankly I'd love to sell, um, and try something new. But if I don't sell it, I just keep it running smoothly and independently. Um, because I want to try new things. I want to find hobbies. I want to travel. Um, and I want a sex life, you know, because I didn't have one for the last decade of my marriage. And that's a long time. But I've had some interesting dating experiences since I became relatively free. I will say with my ex, my soon to be ex, um, we reached an agreement very early when things weren't working. We weren't in a hurry to get divorced for a particular reason because we were still had a lot of intertwining of our assets and we had the business together and all this business. But we reached an agreement on an open marriage and we actually did it in writing and quite formally and quite comprehensively. And we signed that. And it gave us both the right to date freely without any permission or anything. So we were unambiguous. And I'd be glad to share with anybody who's interested examples of the contract that we signed as an open. We called it an open marriage contract. We weren't thinking in those days about, oh, we're going to save our marriage or we're going to spice up our marriage. We knew that our marriage was over. This was just a temporary way to deal with it. Um, and then later, so it was very easy later to transition into true separation. And we were separated for quite a while, living inside the huge house because one of our kids was moved out and there were three floors. I lived on the third floor. She lived on the first floor. The kids lived on the second floor. It was no problem. It was that big. Uh, so, but that's where I am as far as I'm looking at the future and I'm looking at my future, at hobbies, at dating, at freedom, what that means, the fear of what that means, the lack of comfort that you normally have when you're in a settled situation. And I'm excited, you know, I'm ready. Dating has been complicated. I'd love to talk about that. Not here, not today, but we will. And I'd love to hear. your comments about any of this, and if there's any of this resonates in your life. Um, which direction are you going? What are you going to do? Or, I see a lot of men who just go out and find another woman. That's fine if that's what you want. I'm not in a hurry to go out and settle down with some other woman. I lived a somewhat unusual life. Was depressed as a kid, or at least as a teenager. I was very depressed. And I didn't date at all as a teen. I lived a very uh, I lived a very secluded life. I basically just went to school, then I went home. I didn't participate in any extracurricular activities. I didn't participate in any sports. Now, when I was younger, middle school, elementary, I participated in a lot of sports with like boys clubs and stuff like that. But once it got to high school, I didn't do that at all. Partly because by the time you get to that age, the kids get good, and the mediocre people like me just fall by the wayside. We can't compete. I mean, I used to play basketball when I was younger, and then you look at these guys playing basketball in high school, and I couldn't touch them. I mean, they just were powerhouses, and I said, shit, I can't do that. I can hardly make a basket. They don't want me. So, and I'm not particularly tall or anything. Um, so I didn't participate in the sports. I didn't go to any dances at proms. I didn't do anything. I wasn't in any clubs. I became so depressed that 11th grade to me is a blur. I don't really remember my 11th grade. And I didn't go to 12th grade. I skipped it. I had taken so many classes that I was able to take English in the summer between my junior and senior year and graduate early. And I just took a semester off. I didn't do anything. I was thinking about getting a job, but I tried McDonald's for a day and decided that was not for me. I couldn't stand it. And my dad was not happy about me quitting that. He was very concerned. But I did. But then I ended up getting a job. It was on a quote farm, and it's just an estate kind of thing where some guy that owned a lot of land and he was renovating old farmhouses and renting them out. And he was an old curmudgeon, kind of weird, and paid everybody in cash or something. But anyway, he had a Batmobile car. It was amazing. He would get mad and drive that thing and squeal the tires and stuff. And what a strange person. But anyway, I did that for a while and decided that was not going to be for me. But I stuck with it through Christmas, and then after Christmas, I didn't go back. Instead, I went to school. So I started school one semester before my peers would have started college. I started junior college, and I just took a couple classes. I just focused on because I had hated school by then. I had such a bad taste in my mouth from the whole experience that I decided I hated school. I blamed school for not discovering me, for not recognizing my depression, for not recognizing my intelligence because my grades were mediocre, um, and I wasn't challenged or I was lost in the system. And I despise the system. And that's probably why I was so involved in my kids later on. And they went to private school, and me and my wife were very, very involved in that. I was on the board of the school because my kids were not going to get lost in any damn system. Um, I was successful later on. I was graduated from college magna cum laude. And then I later went to law school and graduated magna cum laude, which is a whole nother deal. That's quite an achievement, something I'm very proud of. Um, and why I went to law school is your guess is as good as mine. But I did it, and there you go. So, because I don't practice law, I did for a little while, and it wasn't really of interest to me. But I love the intellectual challenge. So that's the kind of guy I am. And yet the schools completely missed that and gave me poor grades. Yeah, and then I would take standardized tests and come out 99 percentile. And nobody noticed. Nobody picked that up and said, wait a minute, 99th percentile? C's and B plus, B minuses, and wait a minute, we're missing with it. Nope, nobody ever looked because everybody was getting their little government salary and they were just doing their little thing, and then they were going home and they didn't give a damn. And I really didn't want to be a part of that or have my kids be a part of that. That's how I felt anyway. Left me with a bad taste, as you can tell. So anyway, that's just backstory. There's tons of that. Everybody has it. Um, I'm more excited to talk about what's ahead, what could be ahead, to share that with you. to share my excitement, to share my foibles and failures, especially in dating, which I've had some shocking successes in dating. Um, because I was very inexperienced. Because I told you I was very depressed. I didn't date in high school. I didn't. I was a virgin until I was 27. People, okay, 27. And then it was with someone who I did not find attractive, who I wasn't sexually interested in, but they were available. And I said, what the frick? I got to get rid of this V card. So I did it. I liked them as a friend, but I had no interest in them the other way. But anyway, that's fine. Uh, and then that's when I started dating. When I was in law school and when I was doing really well, and I actually led up. I was number one in the law school class, and I was getting recruited by big law firms. They were taking me out to dinner and all that kind of crap. And I'm like, what? I'm a B minus student, right from high school, and I'm being taken out to dinner by major law firms, in office towers in the city, and I'm like, wow. My brother-in-law used to tell me stories because he was a jock and he used to play basketball. He was captain of his college basketball team, and then he busted his knee, and that was the end of that. But he got recruited heavily too, and he had those kind of experiences. Taken out to dinner, being treated like a king, and it's a neat to have that experience once in your life. But I wasn't interested in those firms. I did. That's not the life I wanted. I remember went out to dinner with one of these firms, and they had a whole bunch of partners and people and a couple of associates at the dinner table. I was the guest of honor, and they were trying to recruit me to come to their summer program. And they had a young kid there who was a brand new associate, who basically means a grunt. And that's who I would be. And I looked at him, and he just looked completely harried. He looked worn out. And they were joking about, yeah, yeah, he lives at the office. He works about 20 hours a day. They thought it was funny. And I'm thinking, that's me. You're taking me out to dinner so I can do your scut work, and look like that kid. Really? No, I'd already made my decision. So, but they didn't know that, and I was glad to eat their steak because it was yummy and it was a very nice restaurant. But anyway, I already knew that I didn't want that life, but I'd certainly take a dinner. Um, I made decisions throughout my life, some of which I wouldn't say I regret, but I wonder about. Most of my decisions were solid decisions at the time, built on solid logic, often wrong, despite all that. Like the realtor question, I was solid. I was convinced of my logic. And okay, I was wrong. So I don't know things. I know I don't know a lot of things. What is it? Aristotle or whoever it said, one of them guys, that, the smartest man in the world is the guy who knows that he knows nothing, or the woman for that matter. And I know that. I know how much I don't know. And so we all do the same thing, right? We all do the best we can. We measure what information we have. We try to get as much as we can, but at some point you just got to make decisions or you'll be indecisive. And you move forward with your life, and sometimes it doesn't go where you expect, and sometimes it's a complete failure. Sometimes it takes you into a deep pit. Um, I've always tried to avoid making decisions that I knew would take me into a pit. I stayed away from drugs and alcohol because I knew those just take you into a pit. There's no good direction there. There's no way out of that that's good. There are people who claim their whole life has been turned around and made better by marijuana. I was just listening to a podcast today saying that marijuana changed my life. They seem to be people who had ADHD problems. I have a daughter, my youngest, who has bad ADHD. She gets special therapy and all kinds of stuff for it, medications. Really hurt her ability to perform in school. She's extremely smart, very smart. But, in terms of performing on a test, she can't focus, can't read a book. And, marijuana might help. But she won't touch drugs because our whole family's had anxiety or depression. It runs in families. I had it and it came down, I'm sure. And, we all take medications and we know how delicate the brain is. I mean, my youngest has taken medication, tiny pill, and it blew her away. And, she knows how even the smallest thing can screw with your brain. And so, generally speaking, my kids are very careful about substances, and that makes me feel better. Except my oldest, who is experimented, but experimented in an intelligent way, not just for play, but actually almost a scientific inquiry. Um, so I guess I need to be proud of my kids. I always told them the one thing that will stop you is substance abuse. No matter how smart you are, no matter how talented you are, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how driven you are, it doesn't matter. None of that shit matters if you get hooked on substances. It'll destroy your life. It'll pull you down. So I hope that sunk into them. I drilled it into them, and I think it left a deep impression. But medications can be miracles too, and so maybe something about marijuana has some benefits to that. I don't know. Probably something that, in honesty, it's probably worth experimenting with to find out. And if it doesn't, then you just stop. It's not addictive. I heard a woman told me that it was addictive. Don't tell me it's not addictive. Um, but I think she's pretty old school. So, I mean, anything can be psychologically addictive, but I don't think marijuana's addictive. That being said, I'm one of the few people on planet Earth that has never touched marijuana. I've never smoked it. I've smelled it from a distance because you can't miss it. It stinks. But I smelled it on people's clothes coming on the school bus. Haven't smelled it in a while. But I've never used it, never used CBD. I've touched CBD pills. I actually gave one to my mother when she's got dementia. I was willing to try anything. But anyway, who knows? But anyway, I, as you can tell, when I was young, I didn't do anything. I didn't take drugs. I stayed away from that stuff because being depressed, I would have been a good candidate for drugs or alcohol. But I was scared of that stuff. My parents wouldn't have approved, and I thought they were all I had to rely on. I didn't know how I'd survive without them at that time. Um, so anyway, I didn't get involved in that. That's my early life. Now I'm looking at this whole new beginning, and honestly, the future looks way better than my past. I mean, the my future right now, looking ahead, has got to be 1,000 times better, or at least 10 times better than the future I had as a teenager. Really, I through most of my life, and I hate to say this, when I've looked back at my life, my general opinion has been, I don't want to look back at it. I don't want to review my life because it depresses me. I didn't pursue things that I enjoyed. I never did work that was meaningful to me. I was very successful financially very early on, and then slowly lost money until now. If you drew it on a chart, you would watch a line go straight up and then just slowly decline for the next 15, 20 years. And that's where I am now. So, nowhere to go but up. But I actually feel strong. I'm in the best physical shape of my life. I wear the same size I wore in high school as far as clothes. I'm building my muscles. I never had muscles as a young person or young man, ever. I was the fat kid. In fact, my friends called me, in a warm way, the fat man. I was the fat man because I was overweight, always chubby. I have done a lot. I mean, not only working out, but my diet. I've changed my diet completely, done a lot of research, and had a lot of testing done for my diet. I also supplement with testosterone and other substances that moderate the testosterone in my body and stuff, and the some of the other chemicals in your body that inhibit health. That stuff seems to work. I think that's a big part of my body shape changing and becoming more masculine. Having a waist, having broad. I mean, I always had broad shoulders, but having a waist, having relatively slim legs, not slim, but normal legs instead of chubby legs. I mean, my whole life, my legs would rub together as a kid, and if I had corduroys, which we used to wear in the old days, there would always be right where my thighs met. the corduroy would be worn away because my thighs were rubbing against each other. That's a fat person problem. Anybody else out there who had weight now or before who wore corduroys knows exactly what I'm talking about. When I would bend my leg, you'd see the knee, and then to the side, there would be the skin would pop out, and there would be a fat layer that pops out from there whenever you look at your knees bent. And now I can bend my knees, and I don't have that fat popping out. I mean, I know that I'm in better shape, and I like that. Um, I still can't see my abs. I've never actually seen my abs in my life, but I'm getting close. I can tell I'm getting closer. And I may someday see my abs, and that will be great. And also, it really does not hurt, guys, to get in shape when you're chasing women. You don't chase women, by the way; they chase you. That's another little thing we'll talk about. Never chase women. It's the biggest turnoff for a woman when a man chases her. Trust me. But anyway, and my method is that I've used has worked. Like, I mean, I've got women that fell in love with me, good women who I wasn't interested in that way, but nice people who just keep coming back, even after they've got boyfriends. They still come back. And I'm just me, and I'm just a guy, right? I'm a guy with very little experience. I didn't get a lot of sexual experience before I got married. Then my wife turned out to be not sexual at all. Eventually told me she was asexual. And then, like I said, the last half of our marriage, there was no sex. It was a dead bedroom. And so I don't have a lot of sexual experience. And I was hoping to get some more and started dating and had really good experiences with people who um, were into sex in a healthy way. And we're sex positive, as my coach would say. Oh, no, I have a coach. That's another thing I'll talk to you about. I've worked with therapists and then a coach forever. I mean, forever. Over 20 years. Um, every week without, very rarely. This week we were supposed to have our session today, and she was sick. And it's, I'm doing great. Don't worry about it. Talk to you next week. But trust me, you should not try to do this alone. This journey is not meant to be done alone. I mean, I'm here. Other people like me are here. But also, you need customized approach that only a therapist can do for you. We all do. I'm noticing my eyes are really dark circles under them, and they're kind of red. I don't know what the heck's going on, but don't worry about it. I'm not sick or dead, and I'm not high or any of those business. Um, I've just been looking at a little teeny a phone screen for hours, and I guess that's what it does to your eyes. Anybody got any solutions for these dark circles under your eyes, by the way? And I have like blotches under my eyes. Anybody got any solutions for that? That's kind of a inherited. Like none of my family has this, but my sister who passed away, she had blotches and mountains of freckles. She was fair haired. She would burn when fair haired and burned when the sun, sunburn. She wouldn't tan, and she got like a zillion freckles, and her whole face was just covered in freckles. Some people can be really cute that way, but her, it was just, too much, especially under her eyes. And I'm getting these blotches, and you don't want shit around your eyes. Trust me, your eyes are one of your main features, and it's really important to feature them. I'm anti glasses. I used to have Coke bottle glasses when I was young. That another thing that added to my attraction to girls in those days, I'm sure. And when I became an adult years later, after law school, I got LASIK, and that changed my life in a positive way. So something else I strongly recommend. If you need glasses, get LASIK. It's not that expensive. You can probably afford it, and it will change your life. Or at least use contacts, because you probably look better without glasses. Most people do. But anyway, just that's little bits and pieces of what kind of things that we can talk about in the future, as well as sharing my experiences. And I'm excited for feedback from you all as far as your experiences or your opinions on that, good or bad. Let me have it. I can take it. And hey, I've really enjoyed talking. Uh, I really enjoy you being here. I really appreciate the opportunity, the time that you've taken to listen. And I want to do this as a growth thing for me. And I also want to share what I've learned with you because men need to help each other. We really do. Because ain't nobody else going to help us. Women aren't going to help us, dude. Women want us to help them. They expect us to carry the weight for them. They're not going to come and save our asses. And, your parents aren't going to save your ass if you still have them. Your kids sure as hell ain't going to save your ass. Your spouse ain't going to save your ass. Who's going to save your ass? You are. And maybe we can help each other because men are just such solo people in many cases, especially men of our age and our station in life or position in life. Many of us don't have any friends, really. People we work with, but we really don't have any friends. We don't have time. We're too busy working or doing this or doing that or dealing with our family. We don't have any friends. Not really. No one we sit and really spend quality time with. If you do, you're very blessed. Um, so that's something else we can be for each other, or at least talk about it. So thank you so much. Enjoyed our time. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.